We were hosting a small engagement party when our neighbor blasted his lawn sprinklers over our fence, soaking the tables, food, and guests. I ran over, furious, and he just laughed, shouting, "Thought I'd help you cool off." The night ended with my fiancée crying in the car, her makeup ruined. Weeks later, when we sent out wedding invitations, he mockingly returned his RSVP card, scribbled over with the words, "Will attend just to ruin it." My name's Mark. I'm from Longview, Washington. I'm 34, and until about a year ago, I thought of myself as a pretty easygoing guy. I'm not someone who looks for drama. I just wanted a normal life, a quiet place to call home, and to marry the love of my life. Her name's Sarah. She's 31, sweet as hell, the kind of woman who brings flowers to her friends just because it's Tuesday. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Middle class, old trees, a little worn down but nice. We moved in during the spring. She was so happy. First time she ever had a garden. First time either of us ever owned anything. I was proud. We were building something. Then there was Rick. Rick lived next door. Late 50s, always in cargo shorts and a faded baseball hat, always had a drink in his hand. The kind of guy who's lived in the same house for 30 years and resents everyone younger than him. I tried saying hi the first few days. He grunted and walked back inside. Sarah tried harder. She made cookies, knocked on his door. He yelled through it, "I don't do visitors." That was it. We left it alone. We started noticing little things. He'd blow his leaves right into our yard. If our trash bins weren't lined up perfectly on collection day, he'd knock them over. Once he sprayed some kind of chemical on his side of the fence, and it killed part of our flower bed. Still, we didn't want trouble. I'd wave, he'd ignore me. Sarah baked him a pie for Thanksgiving. Never got a thank you. Just found the pie tin dumped on our side of the fence a week later. So when we planned our engagement party, we did think about him. We kept it small. 30 people, just family and close friends. We kept the music soft. No loud DJ, just a Bluetooth speaker and some fairy lights in the backyard. It was a beautiful night. Sarah wore this white floral dress. I'll never forget how she looked. Her mom brought homemade potato salad. Her sister made cupcakes. Her dad gave a toast that made everyone cry. People were laughing. Kids were playing with sparklers. It was one of those nights where everything felt just right. Until the sprinklers turned on. They didn't start slow. They came on with a loud hiss and a hard spray, like someone flipped a fire hydrant. Our tables were set up along the fence, and Rick's sprinkler heads had clearly been adjusted to shoot over it. The blast hit the food first. Plates flipped. The cupcakes turned to mush. Then it hit the guests. Screams, people jumping back, someone dropped a tray of drinks. Sarah froze for a second before getting hit straight in the face. Her hair and makeup, gone in seconds. I ran over to the fence, soaked and shaking. "What the hell, man?" I shouted. Rick stood there on his patio, holding a beer, watching the whole thing. And then he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Thought I'd help you cool off." And he laughed. This long, cruel laugh like he was proud of himself. I lost it. I was ready to jump that fence, but Sarah grabbed my arm. Her hand was trembling. "Mark, don't. Please don't." We packed up early. Everything was ruined. Her dad hurt his back when he slipped on the wet patio. We barely spoke in the car. Sarah was crying, wiping her face with a paper towel, her makeup streaked and ruined. The next day I marched over and tried to talk to Rick. I knocked on his door, polite but firm. "You owe us an apology," I said when he opened the door. "You ruined our night." He smiled, leaned against the frame. "No one told you to set up near the fence." Then he shut the door in my face. Sarah didn't sleep well for days. Every time she heard Rick's sprinklers go on, she tensed up. I started watching him, watching everything. When we mailed out the wedding invitations, we debated even sending him one. I thought maybe it'd calm things down. We shouldn't have. He sent it back within 2 days. We got it in the mail, opened it, and found this. Across the RSVP card, in thick black Sharpie, he'd written, "Will attend just to ruin it." Under that, "Hope there's an open bar, I'm thirsty." Sarah started shaking. Then she ran to the bathroom to throw up. I took the card to the police. They said it wasn't a threat, just rude. I called a lawyer. He said we couldn't file anything unless Rick showed up at the venue with a weapon or caused actual damage. We considered changing locations, but the venue was already paid for. A friend's vineyard out in Kalama. Beautiful place. Quiet. We couldn't afford to change everything. Plus, we didn't want Rick to win. That was the word that kept sticking in my head. Win. He wanted to scare us. Intimidate us. Keep us afraid. So I stopped being afraid. I started planning. I stopped sleeping much after that. I stayed up late, researching, watching Rick's habits. He had a schedule. Up by 7 a.m., out in the yard by 7:30. Sprinklers on every other morning. Most days he drank by noon. Sometimes earlier. He always left for a bowling league on Thursdays around 6 p.m. Always. I also found out something else. His back fence wasn't on his property. It stuck out about 2 feet onto a utility easement. I confirmed it through city property maps. That meant technically, he wasn't supposed to build anything there. And there it was, his ugly rust-stained sprinklers, drilled into a post that wasn't legally his. I filed a complaint. Quietly. Under a fake name. I used a neighbor's address. I sent it to both the city and the county utility office. 3 weeks before the wedding, someone from the zoning board came out with a clipboard. I watched from inside as Rick argued with the guy, red in the face. 2 days later, a notice went up on his door. Property violation, pending review. It wasn't enough. Sarah didn't want to hear about him anymore. She was trying to focus on the wedding, her dress, the guests, the seating chart. She still had nightmares about that sprinkler night. Still avoided the backyard. But I wasn't done. I made friends with the guy 2 houses down, Martin. He didn't like Rick either. Said Rick once threatened to poison his dog for barking. I asked Martin if he had cameras that covered Rick's side yard. He did. We set it up so I'd get clips if there was movement on that side of Rick's property. I didn't want just to stop Rick from ruining the wedding. I wanted him to feel what we felt. The helplessness. The public humiliation. I got my chance the Monday before the wedding. Rick was outside yelling on his phone, pacing the lawn. The sprinklers were sputtering, they weren't working right. I guess something had clogged the system. I watched him kick the sprinkler head, then storm into his garage. Martin's camera caught the whole thing. Then, like fate was giving me a gift, Rick backed his old beat-up truck into the street and hit a mailbox. He took off, like nothing happened. Didn't even leave a note. 2 days later, I went to the city office and dropped off a USB stick with the footage. I made sure it came from an anonymous neighbor. The morning before the wedding, a city truck pulled up in front of Rick's house. 2 workers in reflective vests marked the pavement near the curb. A tow truck arrived 10 minutes later and started measuring the distance between Rick's truck and the hydrant. He was illegally parked. They ticketed him. Then the code enforcement guy got out and handed him another notice, one for the fence. Rick blew up. I watched from behind my living room curtains as he yelled at the workers. Called one a bootlicking city rat. Then he stormed back inside, slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. That night, we had the rehearsal dinner. Sarah smiled for the first time in weeks. Then the wedding day came. And that's where everything almost fell apart again. The morning of the wedding started calm. We stayed at the vineyard the night before. Sarah and her bridesmaids were upstairs getting ready. I was downstairs with my best man, trying to stay relaxed. I had my phone off. We wanted a clean day, no stress, no last-minute issues. But around 11 a.m., Martin called twice in a row. That wasn't normal. I picked up, already tense. Mark, he said, I don't want to freak you out, but Rick's loading something into his truck. Big coolers. Boxes. I think he's heading your way. My stomach dropped. Did he say anything? No, but he was wearing a damn suit jacket. And he was laughing. Said something to himself like, let's make this one for the books. Then he peeled out of the driveway. I didn't tell Sarah. She was already nervous enough. But inside, I was boiling. I called my friend Dave, who was managing the entrance gate at the vineyard. Told him to be ready. Described Rick, his truck, everything. He shows up, you don't let him in, I said. You call me right away. Dave agreed. For the next 2 hours, I couldn't relax. I kept imagining him crashing through the vineyard in that rust bucket of a truck, blasting air horns or throwing beer on the guests. I imagined him screaming during the vows, pouring oil on the aisle, lighting up sparklers in the middle of the ceremony. I couldn't shake it. But then Dave texted at 1:30 p.m. Truck showed up. Tried to talk his way in. I told him to get lost. He yelled for a while, then drove off. I got video. I felt the relief like a weight off my chest. It was done. He tried, and we stopped him. The wedding went forward. It was beautiful. Sarah cried during the vows. So did I. The vineyard looked like something out of a movie. Everyone said it was the best ceremony they'd ever been to. It was everything we wanted. Until the next morning. That's when we found out Rick did show up. Not to the vineyard. Not to the wedding. To our house. When we got back to the house the next day, the front door was unlocked. That was the first red flag. We never leave it open. We triple-checked everything before we left for the vineyard. I stood in the entryway, scanning the living room. At first, nothing looked touched. No broken windows. No mess. But then Sarah went into the kitchen. She screamed. The fridge was wide open. Food pulled out and dumped onto the floor. All the wedding leftovers gone. The cake top we'd planned to freeze for our anniversary? Smashed in the sink. Beer bottles lined the counter, half drunk, as if someone had thrown their own party in our kitchen. I ran to the back door. Still locked. Windows were intact. The garage too. But our guest bathroom had a broken towel rack, and the sink was running. On the bathroom mirror, scrawled in thick red lipstick, were the words, "You really thought I'd miss it?" Sarah went pale. She sat down on the floor, speechless. I could feel her whole body trembling. We called the police. This time, they took it seriously. The officer walked through, took photos, dusted for prints. I showed him the RSVP card. Told him about Rick. About the sprinklers, the threats, the attempt to crash the wedding. The officer wrote everything down. He nodded a lot. Then he said what I already knew. No forced entry. And unless we find prints or video, it's just circumstantial. You might want to think about getting cameras installed. I already had. Martin's cameras picked up Rick's truck pulling into our driveway the night before the wedding, around 8:45 p.m. He stayed for 45 minutes. Then he left, laughing to himself, beer in hand. He'd let himself in somehow. Either lockpicked or found the spare key we'd stupidly hidden under the garden rock. The cops watched the footage, but again, no direct proof he entered the house. The front door camera wasn't up yet. They said they'd follow up. That was it. Sarah cried for hours that night. I sat in the living room in the dark, just staring at the driveway. I couldn't believe it. He came into our home. He trashed our food. He walked through our rooms. He mocked us. That was the last line. So I crossed mine. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, waiting. Not for him, but for the right idea. The one that would end it. The next day, I called in sick to work. While Sarah stayed in bed, barely speaking, I drove to the county clerk's office and pulled every record I could find on Rick. His house, taxes, code violations, anything. It wasn't hard. The guy had been sloppy for years. Unpaid fines. 2 noise complaints from 2021. A zoning dispute with another neighbor. A warning from the fire department for improperly stored propane tanks. Even a lien from a contractor he never paid. It was all public. It just took some digging. Then I made copies. Dozens of them. Packets. Each one with a summary of Rick's troubled record and a short note at the bottom. Is this who you want living next to your family? I mailed a packet to every house within a 6-block radius. I dropped them in mailboxes early in the morning, wearing gloves. I posted one on the bulletin board at the local grocery store. Another on the rec center wall. One even ended up stapled to a tree outside his house. Not by me, but I smiled when I saw it. And then I called in a favor. My cousin Alex works for a local news station in Kelso. I told him the story. Every piece of it. Showed him the RSVP card. The sprinkler video. The trashing of the kitchen. The camera footage. Even Rick's old violations. Alex ran a short piece on neighborhood harassment, didn't use names, but blurred footage of the RSVP card and truck. Anyone nearby could figure out who it was. Then came the final nail. I made an anonymous call to the fire marshal's office about Rick's propane tanks. Told them he was storing them next to a space heater in his garage. The inspection happened 3 days later. They found violations. Real ones. Dangerous ones. Rick got hit with a $2,500 fine and a warning that if he didn't clear the tanks and fix the venting in his garage, they'd condemn the property. Within a week, Rick lost it. He stood in his front yard screaming about snitches and government rats. A neighbor filmed him and posted it on Facebook. It went local viral. He tried to fight it. Tried to pass out flyers accusing us of being criminals. But no one listened. People crossed the street to avoid him. His bowling league kicked him out. The city came by again and made him tear down part of his fence for violating code. 3 weeks later I saw the "for sale by owner" sign go up. He moved out within a month. Did I feel bad? No. Not even close. Sarah cried again. But this time, from relief. The day he left, we toasted in the backyard. Played music. Turned on our sprinklers. He never came back. We still live here. We still walk by his old house. It's owned now by a quiet retired couple who bake pies for Christmas and wave every time they see us. They even brought over cookies when they moved in. We ate them together on our porch. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah smiled without fear.